time for Checkpoint. Now, it seems for every political interest, there's a referendum waiting to happen. There's one for governors who want more money. There's another one for courts seeking to replace the presidential system of government with a parliamentary one. And then there is the March 4th movement, which wants the president and the deputy president elected by popular vote by elected officials at the county level and not by you and me. Now, the March 4th movement wants Kenya to adopt a system that is similar to the Electoral College in the United States, where in our case, each county will be apportioned presidential electoral votes equal to the number of its elected officials. So for instance, here, those would be the governor, the senator, members of the National Assembly, including the women's representative. A candidate who wins that popular vote of a particular county will also win all the presidential electoral votes in that county on a winner-takes-all basis. Now, to be elected president, according to the March 4th movement, one would have to get at least 216 votes, being more than one half of the possible 431 presidential electoral votes. Now, if no candidate gets those 216 votes, there would be a runoff. And why do the proponents of the March 4th movement want the electoral system changed? Take a look at the picture on your screens now. They say because of the tyranny of numbers since independence, power has never left that room where Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, his son, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and former Presidents Mwai Kibaki and Daniel Arap Moi were pictured. Well, joining us tonight to discuss this and more, to my immediate right, Okia Omtata. He is a well-renowned activist and, of course, the man behind the March 4th movement. Thank you so much for coming in today. And right next to him is Onyango Lo. You may remember him, of course, from the election campaigns. He's the Secretary General for the National Alliance, which is the President's Party. Thanks for coming. And, of course, our resident political analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. Professor, I start with a message for you from Moses Kuria. He says he misses you and he's very sad he can't be on the show.
Oh, he went without telling me. He's in China.
Yeah, he's in China with the president, apparently. So,
thank you.
Yeah, apparently he misses you. Okay, let me start with you. Some would argue that the fundamental flaw with our country and with the fact that politics is so ethnically charged or based is the fact that we as Kenyans ourselves have refused to move away from tribalism. And that's what we saw in the last general election. Despite all the campaigns we have on national cohesion, on bringing the country together, people still chose to vote on ethnic lines. Now, it is certainly not the most noble way to go about an election, but it also isn't necessarily criminal or unconstitutional. Why would you not start by changing the way Kenyans think?
Well, I don't know if Kenyans think at all, so I wouldn't begin engaging into a futile exercise. And if they think, I think they think privately. But what's important is to note that the March 4th movement is a continuation of a long process that began in the pre-referendum days. And I remember I hosted MPs at the Intercon. Among those MPs were MPs who were in the no camp. We had Isaac Ruto, and we developed a document of what were the irreducible minimums in the new constitution that we wanted to see effected before the draft was passed. Because
in your opinion, Kenyans don't think and they need
No, one of the things was that there was this thing of devolution. And it was to devolve power and to devolve resources on the ground. In fact, if you devolve power, so resources will follow, because it's power which deploys resources. So when you see Isaac Ruto going the way he's going, it's based on a document. When you see me going the way I'm going, it's based on a document.
But
and in the no camp, we had the Deputy President, William Ruto. And in February last year, I filed a case in court challenging the Political Parties Act because it was designed for big tribes and left out small tribes. And this case is still pending. So when we came to March 4th, we had an election. And our election, after Krigla came in, after the 2007, there was a standard they were given. And the standard was tamper-proof elections. It was not supposed to be this business of free and fair nonsense, because nothing can be free and fair in the universe. The universe is not fair. What we were told is that design a system that can guarantee a tamper-proof election. That was the standard in the Krigla. That's the standard this constitution was supposed to realize.
Okay, wait, hold it there. I need to interject. Remember, this is a conversation, it needs to be back and forth. I want you to go back to your initial statement that you're not sure whether Kenyans think or not. Is that why you want county elected officials to think on their behalf and vote for them?
No. You said to change the mindsets. So I don't know, because the mindsets, I don't know how the mindsets of Kenyans are made, whether they think or they don't, I don't know. I only know about my mind. What we want is a system where Kenyans elect their president directly in an electoral process that gives equity and deals with this question of that makes it possible for people from the small tribes. I want to live in a situation whereby a Somali can be the president of Kenya. A Pokomo can be a president of Kenya. I want a situation whereby an Indian Kenyan can be a president of Kenya. A Kenyan European can be a president of Kenya. And that can only happen whereby you have an electoral system that ensures politics is prosecuted on a platform of ideologies and development programs, not identity, not tribal identity.
Okay, let me bring in Onyango on this question. And part of what Okia and his team have said is that elections as they are right now is purely a census of tribes. Is that something that you agree with?
I refuse to ascribe to that. First and foremost, it is wrong to say that one does not know whether Kenyans think or not. Kenyans do think. Of course, we are people who are weaned on our tribes, people are proud to be in their communities, the cultural aspects and all that. And largely for sometimes Kenyans had been voting towards the tribe. But this has been changing very consistently if we are just fair to ourselves. So to say that we have to change the way we do our elections for the president for us to curtail the issue of ethnicity is simply a misstatement.
But that statement is not entirely true. Look at the just concluded March 4th election. Kenyans voted along tribal blocks, absolutely, and the coalitions that were formed on tribal blocks. Look at Central and Rift Valley, overwhelmingly for Jubilee, Nyanza and the rest, overwhelmingly for CORD.
You could be right, but the word absolutely is misplaced. Why do I say that? Raila simply outwatched Musalia Mudavadi in Western Province. If you go to Eastern Province, Raila performed very well even in Meru areas. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta did exemplary well in Kalenjin land. He did well in Masai land. He did well in other areas, including Central Province. So we must start by saying, well, Kenyans are inclined towards the tribe. But largely, of late, we see the voting pattern move towards issues-based. How else do you explain 2003, when Kikuyus voted, split their votes, and Luos voted for a Kikuyu?
No, I think we need to address the issue of the tribal blocks. And when we're talking about this tribal, CORD was a tribal block. Jubilee was a tribal block. So the areas he's mentioning, when he talks about Western, you had Wetangula representing Western. When he talks about Kalenjin lands, you had that, and there were some other deals under here.
Where do you place the money? Where do you place the money?
I think you guys, you're becoming trivial, and the way you are approaching this discussion will make everybody chase us away from here. I think the point is, I don't agree with Omtata that Kenya, he's talking about the way, he's frustrated with the way Kenyans vote, but he doesn't know, he cannot gauge their mindset.
During a political process.
Let him make his point. Let him make his point. Professor, continue.
Let me make my point.
Okay.
But then, there is a problem when we are discussing the way people vote in this country. The bigger issues are not for Onyango to justify Uhuru getting some votes somewhere. This is what we call political tokenism.
And that is where you get it absolutely wrong.
Yes.
I started by telling
why don't I make
Onyango, please.
Yes,
Professor,
let me make my point. So, when you look at things like the March 4th movement, you say it started before the referendum. There was no March 4th before the referendum, the pre-referendum day. So that is dishonest.
March 4th is branding.
Yes.
The branding of the idea.
Yes.
On March 4th, because on March 4th,
we
failed to carry out a tamper-proof election.
Yes.
So it was a litmus test.
The bigger issue when I look at Yom Tata is this. The frustrations you went through during the March 4th elections is what is making you come up with this idea. You are frustrated because certain things are not happening. And one of the things that is not happening is Jubilee, after it even won the elections, it has not been modest in victory. They have chosen people from the areas that were relevant to them. You should look at cabinet, you look at principal secretaries. Other people have been getting what you call mabaki.
No,
and that is what is frustrating you. That is what is frustrating you.
Professor, just hold on. Okia, please, we conduct these interviews in a certain way, and you may need to wait your turn, so please indulge us so that we could also hear you when you speak. And Prof, I want to get you back to the conversation. Okia has come up with the March 4th movement as a way of ending the tyranny of numbers scourge, which is what finds us every election. Hold on. Do you believe that that is the right way to go, or what is your fundamental problem with the system that he is proposing at a county level?
I don't think that the people who are working with Okia Umtata really understand how to deal with this problem.
Who are these people?
The people you could be working with. The problem is, you cannot sort out the tyrant of numbers by just asking county assemblies
That is where you go wrong. It's not county assemblies who are going to vote.
There are county reps and MPs.
No. Our system is a direct vote.
Mr. Okia,
Our system is a direct vote.
Mr. Okia, please explain how you want Kenyans to vote.
Because you're discussing my idea, let us discuss the
vote.
correct idea, not what you think my idea is.
Please go ahead, just explain
My idea is this. We want to create equity, and we have got electoral units in this country. We have got county electoral units, and we have got a county as an electoral unit. You have got parliament as an electoral unit for representing people, and a county electoral unit for representing interests of the county. So what we are proposing is that each county is considered as one presidential electoral vote across, so that there are 47 electoral votes for the president. Then each constituency is also considered as an electoral vote for the president, so that when an election is conducted, the constituencies in a county, the constituencies in one county plus the county vote constitute the electoral ballot, the electoral votes for that county. So that if you take Nairobi with 17 MPs and one county, that would be 18 votes. So when the votes are done, people vote directly, and you can choose an MP in Party B and choose a president in Party A. MPs and governors can be in Party B, but in Party A you choose a president. And then when the votes are tallied, whoever has won the presidential vote, even by one vote, you win all the points for that county.
Okay, thank you. I think you've explained. Prof, let me come to you because you were in the middle of making a point, and then I'll come to you, please. Olo. Go ahead, Prof.
In the United States, what Okia is talking about is what you call the Electoral College. The Electoral College is the equivalent of the number of senators and the number of House of Representatives in the United States. Now, that one does not necessarily lock out the tyrant of numbers. For example, he's already talking about small tribes and big tribes. I don't know what that means. What Okia should be thinking is, how can we reconstruct our nationhood? Because the nationhood, as conceived in 1963, was ethnicized. And the state has always been ethnicized. Even if you are going to say we are talking about the representatives, we still have people from central Kenya who are representing constituencies in the Rift Valley. And they are likely to vote along those lines.
Mr. Umtata, you must be fair to the other panelists.
They will make up the Electoral College. They could still be representing the Luo constituency in Nairobi and Mombasa. They will still make up that Electoral College that is calling the constituency. So in terms of the administrative boundaries, the national boundaries, the way they are constructed, they are still a problem. So when we want to get out of this place, you don't start with elections. You start with how do we reconstruct the map of Kenya, the political map of Kenya.
I will come back to Olo, please. No, you cannot monopolize the conversation, sir. Please, Olo,
let me start by saying first and foremost that Professor is exposing a problem without giving us a solution at all. How to reconfigure that nationalism and all that should have come by telling us do A, B, C, D towards reconfiguring our nationalism. On the issue of Okia Umtata, I do not understand. What he simply is agitating for is that we substitute tyranny of numbers, as he calls it, with tyranny of counties or whichever electoral units he wants to call them. The position is clear. From what is democracy? The basic definition of democracy is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. The equality of the vote must be respected. And that equality of the vote, whether you are a Luhya, a Teso, a Turkana, one man, one vote, should be valued. What we should look at is Kenyans must be configured towards looking at issues that are beneficial to them, issues that impact on their day-to-day activities, turning blind eye to the tribe.
But you cannot deny the fact that he does make a point when he says we still vote on those blocks, and that even in the just concluded election, we saw political leaders from both sides heading to their so-called strongholds, which
He
are
may be
ethnic
to an extent he could be correct, but his solution is totally misplaced. How would this issue of electoral college now remove the tyranny of numbers or remove
that is exactly what I'm saying.
Gentlemen, you will calm down and you will allow him to speak. Go ahead.
But he's been given all the time.
The tyranny of numbers is this. All these large tribes have very huge diasporas outside their ancestral homes. And you'll find that when a presidential election is held, it creates a national platform or a single basket where even the Luya in Lodwar, the Luya in Mombasa, the Luya in Kakamega is looking about the Luya candidate. The same for the Luo, the same for the Kikuyu. But these people are in counties outside their domesticated area. So when you put these counties as the electoral unit, you will break up these big tribes and force them.
That is naive.
And when you come
that
down,
is somewhere from the moon, something from the moon.
You'll find that the Luos in the Mombasa County,
they will have representatives.
Will have representatives, but they have to be subsumed within Mombasa County, and they will not be able to directly say, I'm voting for Raila. And so I don't care about who comes
Professor,
I don't care who comes. So when you break these things into counties, the various counties now become weighted, and the small people in the counties will get a voice, whereby through now the political parties and whatever, it will be possible for candidates, just like it happened in the US. Today you have a black man who's a minority ruling the US. But I'm telling you, once you break up this
simply not applicable.
I want to ask a question.
Wait, you will ask your question, but I want to direct to you first, Professor, a question that Onyango has brought to you, and he said that essentially you have pointed out what you think is a problem with what the March 4th movement is representing, but you haven't talked about what is the solution of how do you redraw Kenya into a way that encourages us to vote beyond our tribal inclinations.
We need a national conference to relook at the way we were reconstructed at independence, the kind of boundaries that said this is Central Kenya, this is Rift Valley. We want to know the philosophy behind that kind of configuration, and it is a consensus we can reach when we do that. But what I wanted to say,
but there was a delimitation of boundaries that didn't happen too long ago.
Yes,
wasn't that the forum to raise these
It was politicized, and we still think that the problem has not been solved. We still can go back to the people and talk about it. But what I wanted to ask my brother Okia is that if he is Teso and he lives in Mombasa, and he is elected in that area as Teso because the Teso constituency there is big, and then he becomes a delegate.
There are no delegates
you are part of
there are no delegates in the system you are proposing. That's why you are having a problem.
No.
You should have taken the time to understand what you are proposing before you debate it. To come here and begin thinking that what you think you are proposing is wrong. No, there's no delegates because there's been a concerted attempt to force us to have a system of delegates. We don't have delegates. What happens is, irrespective of how people elect in a unit, let's assume there's in Busia now we have got 7 constituencies and 1 senator, 7 constituencies and 1 county.
1 county, yes.
If the people of Busia were to vote 100% for, say, ODM as MPs plus everything, but then for the presidential election, they vote for TNA. TNA would carry all the votes in Busia, irrespective of where
that is correct.
So there are no delegates. There are no delegates in the system, and the vote ends there, and the people move. On the question of the weighted vote, politics is about balancing. Right now, if you look at the population of Central Province and the population of Western, they are at par. But Central has got 5 counties, Western has got 4 counties. So where is the balance? Are you going to begin saying we're going to be able to
Onyango, I want to come to you. I want to come to you because I think I appreciate where you're coming from. I must confess to you, my director has been counting me down for the last 5 minutes or so. So we must absolutely wind up. Certainly, it isn't a forum that allows us to completely ventilate the issues, and I appreciate the passion with which you're doing it. I want to come to you, Olo, with your very final thoughts on because you're a member of the governing coalition.
Of course.
What is the commitment from your coalition to see within their time helping Kenyans to move past ethnic-based voting? He suggested a system. You clearly don't think it's right. What is Jubilee suggesting?
The position of
As your
Jubilee
final comment.
in a very simple way is that we hold that all men or women are born equal before the God Almighty, and that each man or each woman must be equal before the law, and the votes must weigh the same. In that regard, we say the sanctity of the vote must be respected. As to the issue of ethnicity and tribalism, we must go a step forward to reach out to all other areas, whether they voted you or they did not vote you, because we are one country. And then we must bring our manifesto on issues that affect our people from all sectors of this community. The idea of bringing equity where equality can suffice is simply out. And this college issue must just be forgotten.
I thank you, Professor. Your final thoughts, please.
Yes,
keep it brief.
I want to send a message to all. Go and tell the ruling coalition they got it wrong in government appointments. The reason why people like Okia are coming is because the rest of the country has been excluded from the center.
But we are not yet complete with appointments. We are barely halfway.
Gentlemen, I must thank you all. I know it is a very difficult conversation to have in 20 minutes, but I think you've done your best to articulate your views. I need you all to shake hands now for my viewers, because we are not at war. We are trying to understand how to help the country. I thank you all for coming. Okia Mtata, Onyango Olo of TNA, and of course Professor Edward Kisiangani. These